Imagine waking up tomorrow and deciding, without warning, without drama, to vanish from everyone's emotional radar. No goodbye, no cryptic post, just clean silence. You're still in the world, but every thread that once tugged at you, snipped. Now tilt the camera away from your own relief and watch what happens on the other side. At first, the air barely ripples, yet something deep in their psyche cracks like thin ice. Carl Jung would call this the moment a shadow escapes. The ugly, disowned traits people keep locked up until your absence pries the door open. In that instant, your quiet exit feels louder than any argument. It's the soft click of a lock that reminds them how much they needed the door to stay shut. Here's the harsh truth Jung exposed. We never meet each other head-on. We meet our own projections wearing someone else's face. To your best friend, you might be the steady compass. To a sibling, the eternal rescuer. To a coworker, the silent rival who justifies their late-night hustle. None of those masks is really you, yet each person swears they know you. The moment you step back, those masks hit the floor, shattering like glass. Suddenly, they're staring at raw reflections they'd outsourced to you for safekeeping. Insecurity, jealousy, unspoken desire, that nagging need to feel indispensable. Picture the office joker who thrives on your laughter. When you leave, the break room jokes don't land. Was he funny, or were you just generous with smiles? Or think of the friend who vents every crisis your way. When your inbox stays empty, they feel an itch. Who am I if no one is validating my drama? Your absence isn't a gap, it's a mirror angled straight at their unfinished business. Voids are awkward because they shout without making noise. Neuroscientists have scanned the brain during social rejection and found it lights up the same pain pathways as a physical burn. That's why their first line of defense is pure denial. Relax, they're busy. They'll text back. Denial buys time, but time is a terrible accomplice. It turns silence into suspense. The mind starts pacing. Did I push too hard? Did I matter too little? Soon denial mutates into a darker cousin, blame. If admitting need feels weak, calling you selfish feels strong. So a tidy story forms. You ghosted, you betrayed, you always were that way. Notice the trick. Both denial and blame keep them from facing the raw wound. They depended on your presence to prop up something fragile inside. Left unchecked, the void gets theatrical. Memories replay on loop, but each rerun tweaks the script, polishing you into either a saint or a villain, whatever makes the discomfort bearable. A month ago, they joked that you were too nice. Now your kindness becomes mythical. No one listens like they did. Another mind, desperate to dodge guilt, sharpens you into a monster. They walked away because they never cared. Good riddance. Neither version matches the real you. Both are panic sketches slapped onto the empty space where you used to stand. And yet, beneath every glamorized or demonized portrait hides the same unspoken question. What's left of me now that they're gone? That question terrifies because it drags them toward the one place most people avoid, their own interior. Jung called individuation the lifelong task of meeting every unloved corner of the self. Your retreat yanks them to the starting line of that marathon, ready or not. Here's where the plot thickens. The brain hates unfinished patterns, so the longer your silence lasts, the louder their internal static grows. Sleepless nights, sudden nostalgia, a scrolling spree through old photos. It's not really you they miss. It's the version of themselves they once saw reflected in your eyes. Strip away that mirror and identity itself feels shaky. That's why the void screams. It isn't empty at all. It's packed with their disowned shadows, echoing off the walls you used to reinforce. Some people scramble for quick substitutes. A rebound relationship, an overbooked calendar, a new bestie who laughs a little too hard at their jokes. Others spiral into what psychologists call social pain rumination, replaying interactions while the body literally flushes with cortisol, the stress hormone. But a rare few will sit with the discomfort long enough to notice its gift. When the echoes fade, something subtler emerges: self-honesty. They might whisper, "I leaned on you more than I admitted. I hid my fear of failure behind your easy confidence. I measured my worth by your approval." That moment, raw and unfiltered, is the first crack of dawn after a night of howling wind. Whether they seize it or slam the shutters is their choice, but your distance made the sunrise possible. So denial is crumbling, blame is losing traction, and the void is starting to glow like a backlit X-ray of their hidden fractures. What comes next? Anger, the loud stage where they either lash out or finally look inward. And that, my friend, is where the story really starts to heat up. Brace yourself. This is where the emotional weather shifts from eerie calm to full-on thunder. Once denial fizzles, anger rushes in like a storm front because rage feels powerful while vulnerability feels naked. Cue the demonization game. If you left, it must be because you're selfish, ungrateful, maybe even a little cruel. This story shields them from a truth that stings harder. They lost control. Look closely at the mechanics. Demonizing you keeps their ego intact. Idealizing you would bruise it. So the mind produces a highlight reel of every moment you were late, distracted, imperfect. Suddenly, a forgotten Tuesday text becomes hard evidence of betrayal. Notice the emotional math. If you're bad, I'm innocent. If I'm innocent, I don't have to change. Jung would call this projection in reverse. They fling their own abandoned flaws onto you like mud. The coworker who feared abandonment now labels you flaky. The partner who hoarded affection brands you cold. Each accusation is a boomerang, looping back to its owner, but that boomerang is camouflaged in righteous fury. And wow, does anger have range? Some fire off cutting DMS, others stage a silent but theatrical unfollow spree. A few craft entire narratives for mutual friends. They ghosted me after everything. Unbelievable. What looks like a sheetstorm of gossip is really a frantic attempt to stitch their self-image back together before anyone notices the tear. Yet anger is a short-lived fuel. It scorches fast, then sputters. When the adrenaline drains, the void yawns wider than before, and that's when the next tectonic plate slips. Imagine waking one morning to discover a load-bearing wall in your psyche is missing. That's what it feels like when the person you leaned on, maybe without even realizing, steps away. Psychology calls it attachment shock. Jung would call it the collapse of a persona, the social mask we wear to survive. Either way, the identity built around your presence starts buckling. A classic pattern unfolds. 1. Interrogation phase. Endless replay of conversations, desperate to pinpoint the moment it went wrong. 2. Substitution scramble. They hunt for quick fixes, rebound romance, marathon work hours, dopamine drip of social media likes. 3. Existential stall. Nothing sticks. The inner monologue turns raw. Who am I without their mirror? In Bowlby's language, attachments shape our internal working models of self and others. When you walk, their model hits a 404 error. Suddenly they're forced to write fresh code for self-worth. And coding from scratch is messy, bug-ridden work. Here's the revealing part. People rarely confess this free fall aloud. Instead, it leaks sideways. The quiet friend grows snappish, the confident sibling grows clingy. The life of the party shows up looking haunted around the eyes. What you're seeing is not moodiness, it's identity scaffolding swaying in high wind. For some, the crash gets loud. Binge nights, reckless spending, a string of bad decisions that scream, "Notice me." For others, it turns inward. Insomnia, intrusive thoughts, that hollow thump in the chest that makes mornings feel 15 pounds heavier. Both reactions are side effects of losing the anchor your presence provided. Yet hidden inside this collapse lies a blueprint for something astonishing. Individuation, Jung's term for becoming a whole, integrated self. But that blueprint won't activate until the next seismic jolt breaks the last illusion. Here's the paradox no one likes to admit. Sometimes the best teacher isn't comfort, it's chaos. When every familiar signpost is yanked up, the mind has two choices: spiral or rebuild. And rebuild is where metamorphosis happens. Think of the artist who only started painting after a breakup burned her old safety net to ashes. Or the ex-teammate who launched a company the year you quit the firm. Their achievements look brave from the outside, but each began as panic-driven improvisation in the ruins of certainty. Neuroscience backs this up. Periods of acute uncertainty spike BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, a protein tied to neuroplasticity, essentially our capacity to rewire. Stress, when survived, can literally spark new neural pathways. Your absence, unwanted as it was, becomes a lightning bolt that powers the upgrade. But, and this is crucial, chaos turns catalyst only when the person stops blaming the storm and starts studying it. The moment they whisper, "Maybe this discomfort is mine to explore," the script flips. They journal instead of vent, walk instead of doom scroll, sign up for therapy instead of a rebound fling. Tiny acts, enormous ripple. Here's the secret thriller twist. While they wrestle chaos, you are undergoing your own silent evolution. Stepping away wasn't free. It cost you doubt, loneliness, maybe guilt. Yet every day you stay the course. You prove to yourself that boundaries don't equal cruelty. They equal clarity. That lesson can't be taught in comfort. It's etched in distance. So chaos educates both sides. They learn self-reliance, you learn self-respect. And if paths ever cross again, the connection may rise from mutual choice rather than silent need. But before anyone reaches that sunrise, one more night remains, where questions glow hotter than answers, and the mirror turns toward both traveler and stranger. Ready to walk into that final night? In part 3, we'll expose the quiet alchemy of facing the mirror alone and reveal why your disappearance might be the most compassionate chapter in someone else's story. Stay tuned. The revelation's just one breath away. Night settles after the chaos, and both camps, the one who left and the ones left behind, find themselves in the same dimly lit room. A room lined wall to wall with mirrors that don't lie. Solitude, so quiet from the outside, roars like an engine on the inside. It's the sound of every unchecked impulse revving now that no one is there to muffle it. For the people you distanced yourself from, the first thing they notice isn't your empty chair. It's their own reflection suddenly stripped of flattering angles. No quick fix, no borrowed confidence, no audience to applaud the persona. Some try to dim the lights with distraction, but the mirror patiently waits. Others finally lean in, breath fogging the glass, and whisper the questions they once avoided. Why did I need their approval like oxygen? Whose voice is that in my head calling me unlovable? Now flip the mirror. You, the lever, aren't gliding through paradise either. Walking away sounded liberating on paper, but the silence following that first brave step, it carries its own brand of terror. Guilt prowls the corners. Did I abandon them? Was I selfish? Yet with every dawn you remain steadfast, the guilt thins, revealing something rarer beneath: clarity. Clarity says boundaries are a declaration of self-worth, not a sentence of exile. It teaches that compassion without self-respect mutates into martyrdom, and martyrs burn out fast. You start seeing how many yeses were actually disguised no's, how often you offered comfort at the cost of your own peace. And in that recognition, a small but seismic shift occurs. You learn to sit with your own unmet needs instead of outsourcing them to applause, validation, or chaos. Meanwhile, those you left confront the final boss in Jung's dungeon, their shadow in full color. Some will slam the mirror and retreat. Others, braver than they knew, will breathe through the discomfort until armor falls off and authentic skin appears. It's messy, tear-streaked, human, but it's real. That realness becomes the raw material for a self not stitched together by anyone else's thread. If you're listening right now and any of this unease feels familiar, drop a comment that reads, "The void doesn't define me, it frees me." It's not just a slogan, it's a marker on the trail, proof that you recognize the mirror's value even when the image stings. But don't close the journal yet. One revelation remains, and it might flip the entire narrative on its head. Here's the plot twist nobody saw coming. Your disappearance may be the most compassionate act you ever performed. Sounds backwards, right? How could pulling away help anyone? Because sometimes growth needs a controlled burn. Forest ecologists will tell you certain seeds only crack open in fire. Human hearts can be the same. By staying, you sheltered people from the heat that would have forced their seeds to open. By leaving, you offered fire. Painful, yes, but fiercely generative. Look at the news stories beginning to sprout. The colleague you once coached through every presentation just volunteered to lead a project solo and nailed it. The friend who defined herself through your late-night pep talks finally booked therapy and now speaks of boundaries with bright astonishment. Even the ex-partner who raged hardest is quietly exploring meditation and, rumor has it, enjoys her own company for the first time since high school. Those victories don't erase the ache of separation, but they do rewrite the original myth. You weren't the villain or the savior. You were the catalyst. And for you, the road ahead widens. With no one else's agenda strapped to your back, curiosity takes the wheel. You sign up for classes because they ignite you, not because they look impressive. You rediscover music that doesn't remind you of anyone else. You spend a Saturday alone and realize loneliness and freedom share the same silence but taste completely different. That taste, clean, understated, electrifying, is the flavor of self-possession. Now rewind the story to its cold open. Imagine vanishing, just pure silence. What cracks first? We know the answer. Everything that was brittle. Yet what remains after the shards are swept aside is stronger than what stood before. A self not propped up by projection. A relationship, if it ever rekindles, chosen rather than clung to, and a respect for distance as a creative force, not a destructive one. So as the credits roll, mull this over. If everyone vanished tomorrow, who would you be when no one's watching? The question isn't meant to haunt you. It's meant to free you from performances you never auditioned for. If the answer feels hazy, good. Haze means you're out of old scripts and standing on a blank page. Blank pages beg for fresh ink. If you're hungry for more dives into the psyche's unlit corridors, where shadows dance and authenticity sparks, hit subscribe and keep that conversation alive. Because disappearing wasn't the end of the story. It was the echo that revealed how loud your own heartbeat could be when the world finally went quiet. Until next time, stay curious and guard your peace, and remember, the void can't swallow you if you learn to glow in the dark.